Imagine waking up 40,000 years ago. There are no cities, no farms, no medicine, no written history, only your family, and a world that owes you nothing. Yet somehow, these people survived for thousands of generations. They crossed continents, endured the Ice Age, raised children, and built the foundations of everything that would come after. So how did they survive? What did an ordinary day really look like? And what can their lives still teach us today? If you enjoy relaxing journeys through history and science, please like this video and subscribe. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, and travel back to the very beginning of our story. This is the true story of early human civilization. Imagine opening your eyes as the first pale light of dawn slips quietly into your shelter. The fire that kept everyone warm through the night has almost burned out, leaving only a few glowing embers beneath a blanket of grey ash. Around you, your family is still asleep, wrapped in soft animal hides. Outside, birds have already begun to sing, and somewhere far beyond the trees, a herd of deer is beginning another ordinary morning. There are no alarms to wake you, no clocks to tell you the time, and no calendar waiting to remind you of today's plans. Instead, your body follows a rhythm that has guided human beings for thousands of generations, the rising of the sun. But before anything else happens, you make a decision. It may seem so ordinary that you would hardly notice it today, yet 40,000 years ago, it shaped every hour that followed. Do you leave the warmth of the fire now, or stay a little longer? Do you step outside immediately to understand the weather, or wait for the others to wake? Every morning begins with observation, because the world outside changes every single day. A cold wind from the north may mean animals have moved elsewhere. Fresh rain could reveal footprints left only moments ago. Thick morning fog might hide danger just as easily as it hides opportunity. For modern people, mornings usually begin with information delivered by a screen. Weather forecasts, news, messages, and calendars tell us what kind of day lies ahead before we even leave our beds. But for your ancestors, the landscape itself was the only source of information. The smell of the air, the direction of the breeze, the sound of birds, even the silence of the forest could reveal more than any written report ever could. Their survival depended on noticing details most of us would completely ignore today. Yet despite what many films suggest, waking up in prehistoric times was not an endless race against death. Archaeological evidence and studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies suggest that many mornings were surprisingly peaceful. Families did not spend every minute fleeing predators or desperately searching for food. Like us, they stretched after waking. They spoke quietly around the fire. Parents comforted sleepy children. Someone added fresh wood to the flames, while others simply watched the sunrise. Life could be difficult, but it was also filled with ordinary moments that rarely appear in popular stories about early humans. Perhaps the greatest difference was not how dangerous the world was, but how closely people paid attention to it. Every sunrise carried new information. Every sound had meaning. Every change in the landscape deserved to be noticed. Long before humans learned to read words, they had already become experts at reading nature itself. The forest was their newspaper, the sky their calendar, and the wind their first morning conversation. And once everyone was awake, another question quietly waited to be answered. What would they eat today? The first rays of sunlight are now spreading across the valley, and the camp is fully awake. The fire burns brightly once again, sending thin streams of smoke into the cool morning air. Children rub the sleep from their eyes while the older members of the group quietly prepare for another ordinary day. No one rushes. There is no panic. Yet before anyone leaves the shelter, a simple question hangs over every conversation. What will you eat today? For most of us, breakfast is little more than a habit. A cupboard is opened, bread is toasted, coffee is poured. We rarely stop to think about where our food came from or whether it will be there tomorrow morning. 40,000 years ago, that certainty did not exist. But surprisingly, this did not mean people woke every day on the edge of starvation. One of the greatest myths about prehistoric life is the idea that every meal depended on a dramatic hunt. Films often show early humans chasing mammoths from sunrise until sunset, returning either with a feast or with nothing at all. Reality was much quieter, much more patient, and in many ways, far more intelligent. Long before the hunters picked up their spears, others were already thinking about food. They remembered where edible roots had grown after the spring rains. They knew which berry bushes would ripen first, which trees carried sweet nuts, and where wild honey might still be hidden inside old hollow trunks. Every season painted the landscape differently, and those who understood its patterns rarely walked without purpose. You step outside with several members of your family. No one carries a map, yet everyone seems to know exactly where they are going. That knowledge lives entirely in memory. A rocky hillside means herbs. The edge of the river hides edible reeds. A clearing beyond the forest often fills with mushrooms after several days of rain. Every path has been walked countless times by parents, grandparents, and generations long forgotten. The land itself has become a living memory. This knowledge is so valuable that children begin learning it almost as soon as they can walk. A young girl watches her grandmother gently brush aside leaves to uncover a cluster of edible roots. She does not simply copy the movement. She listens to the story that comes with it, which plants look similar but are poisonous, which roots taste sweeter after the first frost, which places should never be harvested because they must be left to grow for another season. Every lesson is woven into conversation, repeated over hundreds of walks until it becomes impossible to forget. Modern science has revealed something remarkable. In many hunter-gatherer societies studied during the last century, the majority of daily calories often came not from hunting but from gathering. Meat was valuable, celebrated, and rich in energy, but it was unpredictable. Plants, nuts, fruits, seeds, and roots quietly formed the foundation of everyday survival. The people who knew the landscape best were often the people who kept everyone alive. And gathering was never simply about collecting food. Every journey became a lesson. Children learned the rhythm of the seasons without calendars. Adults noticed changes in animal tracks without ever discussing them directly. The smell of damp soil hinted that mushrooms might soon appear. Birds gathering in unusual places suggested fruit was beginning to ripen nearby. Nothing in nature existed by itself. Every sign connected to another. Perhaps that is what feels most unfamiliar to us today. Early humans did not separate themselves from nature. They lived inside it. Every morning they stepped into a world that constantly spoke to them, and over thousands of generations they learned how to listen. While part of the family quietly searched for food close to camp, Another group was preparing for something far less certain. Who would leave the camp? And why? The baskets have been woven. The digging sticks are leaning against the entrance of the shelter. Spears are checked one final time, their stone points catching the soft light of the morning sun. The camp has fully awakened, yet something interesting begins to happen. Not everyone prepares for the same journey. Who decides who leaves the camp, and why? For generations, we have been told a simple story. Men hunted, women gathered, children stayed behind. It is a picture that appears in countless textbooks, documentaries, and films. It is easy to remember because it is simple. The real story is not. Archaeologists have spent decades uncovering evidence that paints a far more flexible picture. In several prehistoric burial sites, women have been discovered buried with hunting weapons. Chemical studies of ancient bones suggest that some women consumed as much meat as the most successful hunters. In certain communities, everyone joined large communal hunts. In others, older women became some of the group's greatest sources of knowledge, leading gathering expeditions across landscapes they had memorized over an entire lifetime. Early humans were not following fixed rules written by tradition. They were solving problems. If someone was the fastest runner, they hunted. If someone understood the plants better than anyone else, they gathered. If an older hunter had injured his leg years before, he might stay behind repairing tools while younger members left for the day's expedition. Survival rewarded skill far more than titles. As you stand outside the shelter, the group quietly separates into smaller teams. One group heads toward the forest carrying spears. Another follows the river with woven baskets hanging from their shoulders. A few remain behind to care for the youngest children and the oldest members of the camp. Nobody appears more important than anyone else. Every task supports the others. The hunters may return with hundreds of kilograms of meat, or they may return with nothing. The gatherers almost always return with something. That simple reality shaped human life for tens of thousands of years. This is why many anthropologists now believe gathering was not a secondary activity at all. It was the dependable foundation that allowed hunting to remain an occasional opportunity rather than a desperate necessity. A successful hunt could become a celebration remembered for years. A successful gathering expedition was simply another ordinary day that quietly kept everyone alive. Before leaving, there is almost no shouting or dramatic preparation. The experienced hunters study the wind. One kneels to examine fresh animal tracks discovered near the edge of the camp earlier that morning. Another quietly adjusts the leather bindings, holding his spear point in place. Every movement is slow, deliberate, familiar. They have performed these same small rituals hundreds of times before. Nearby, the gathering group checks their baskets one final time. A grandmother gently reminds a young boy never to collect berries before she has examined them herself. Another woman points toward distant hills where certain roots are beginning to ripen after recent rainfall. No maps exist, no written instructions, yet everyone already knows where they are going. Knowledge lives entirely inside people, and perhaps that was humanity's greatest invention long before writing. Every path remembered, every season understood. Every lesson carried from one generation to the next through nothing more than observation, conversation, and experience. As the groups slowly disappear into different parts of the landscape, the camp becomes strangely quiet. Only a few people remain beside the fire, repairing yesterday's tools and watching over the youngest children. Some are searching for food, some are searching for opportunity, but the hunters are searching for something far more uncertain. How do you hunt an animal that can run faster than you ever could? At first, the hunt seems hopeless. The herd spots you almost immediately. Within seconds, the animals disappear across the open grassland, moving with a speed no human could ever hope to match. An antelope can sprint at nearly 50 miles per hour. Even the fastest human has no chance of catching it. So why do you keep walking? For a long time, people imagined prehistoric hunters chasing animals with incredible speed and strength, overpowering them through force alone. It makes for exciting films, but nature tells a different story. Humans were never the fastest predators. We became something far more dangerous. You continue following the tracks left in the soft earth. The pace is calm. Nobody runs. Nobody wastes energy. Every few minutes someone kneels beside a footprint, touching the soil with careful fingers. Another hunter studies broken branches or freshly disturbed grass. Every sign tells part of a story. The herd is still moving north. One young animal has begun to limp slightly. The wind is still in your favor. Hours pass. The sun climbs higher and the heat begins to settle across the landscape. This is when the hunt truly begins. Unlike wolves or lions, humans possess a remarkable advantage. Our bodies are built not for speed, but for endurance. Millions of sweat glands cool our skin as we move. Long legs make walking and running efficient over great distances. Strong tendons store energy with every step, allowing us to travel for hours without stopping. The antelope has a different problem. Its powerful body can explode into incredible speed, but only for a short time. As the temperature rises, every sprint traps more heat inside its muscles. It must stop. It must breathe. It must recover. You never give it that chance. The hunters continue at the same steady pace, not chasing, not racing, simply following. Modern scientists call this persistence hunting, one of the most extraordinary hunting strategies ever developed by our species. Instead of defeating an animal through strength, humans defeated it through patience. Kilometer after kilometer, hour after hour, they allowed nature itself to exhaust their prey. It sounds almost unbelievable today. Yet anthropologists have documented similar hunting methods among traditional hunter-gatherer societies, even in recent history. In the scorching heat of Africa, experienced hunters have been known to follow a single antelope for several hours, until exhaustion finally slows it enough for a carefully thrown spear. The real battle is not against the animal. It is against time, against the heat, against your own determination to keep taking one more step. Around you, nobody speaks. Conversation wastes breath. Every hunter understands their role without needing instructions. One watches the horizon. Another studies fresh tracks. A third quietly checks the wind, making sure your scent never reaches the herd too early. This is not chaos. It is teamwork refined over thousands of generations. Eventually, something changes. Fresh tracks become deeper. The distance between footprints grows uneven. The animal is tiring. Its breathing is becoming heavier. The advantage is no longer speed. It is endurance. One carefully aimed spear finally ends the chase. Silence follows. No celebration, no shouting, only quiet respect. The hunters kneel beside the animal that will feed their families, provide hides for clothing, bones for tools, and sinew for binding spear points. Nothing will be wasted. Every part has value. For thousands of generations, success was never measured by how many animals you killed. It was measured by how little nature had to give before an entire community could survive another week. And while the hunters begin preparing the long journey back to camp, another group has been busy all along. What was happening back at the camp while everyone else was away? While the hunters disappear beyond the hills, the camp does not become quiet. In many ways, the most important work of the day is only just beginning. It is easy to imagine that everyone who remained behind was simply waiting for the hunters to return. But nothing could be further from the truth. Survival depended on far more than bringing home meat. The fire must never be allowed to die. Children must be cared for. Tools must be repaired before they fail. Animal hides must be cleaned before they begin to rot. Water has to be collected. Food gathered earlier in the morning must be prepared. And every one of these tasks quietly determines whether the group will survive not only today, but the coming weeks and months as well. Near the center of the camp, an older woman kneels beside a stretched deer hide. Using nothing more than a carefully shaped stone scraper, she patiently removes every trace of fat and tissue from its surface. The work is slow, almost hypnotic. Each movement follows the same rhythm she has repeated thousands of times before. This hide may eventually become warm clothing for winter. It may become a blanket for a newborn child. Or perhaps it will be cut into strong leather straps used to bind spear points or carry heavy baskets. Nothing is wasted. Nearby, another member of the group shapes a fresh piece of flint into a new spear point. Every strike must land at exactly the right angle. One mistake can ruin hours of work. Modern archaeologists often compare stone knapping to mastering a musical instrument. It requires patience, precision, and years of practice before true skill begins to appear. Children watch carefully. No classroom exists. No teacher stands before them. Learning happens through observation. A young boy quietly picks up a small stone and tries to copy the movements of the experienced toolmaker. His first attempts produce nothing useful. The flakes break in the wrong direction. The edges become dull instead of sharp. Nobody laughs. Nobody tells him he has failed. Instead, an older hand gently adjusts his grip. Another strike, another lesson. One day he will teach someone else. Knowledge survives because every generation becomes both student and teacher. A short distance away, several children play near the edge of the camp. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than ordinary play. They chase one another through the grass using small sticks as imaginary spears. They laugh as they hide behind rocks and fallen trees. But they are doing something much more important than passing time. Without realizing it, they are practicing, running, throwing, cooperating, solving problems together. Many of the games played by prehistoric children were likely preparing them for adult life long before they understood why. Modern psychologists have discovered that play is one of the most powerful forms of learning. Long before schools existed, evolution had already invented a remarkably effective classroom. The afternoon passes slowly. Smoke rises gently from the fire. Stone strikes stone in a steady rhythm. Someone begins twisting dried plant fibers into strong cord. Another person carefully repairs a woven basket damaged during yesterday's gathering expedition. There is conversation. There is laughter. There are long moments when nobody speaks at all. To a modern observer, this might seem unproductive. But for early humans, these quiet hours were building the future one small task at a time. every repaired tool, every prepared hide, every lesson shared with a child, every basket woven. Each one made tomorrow just a little more likely, and as the sun begins its slow journey toward the horizon, everyone starts looking toward the same distant hills. The hunters should have returned by now. So, what happens if they never come back? The sun is already beginning its slow descent, and a quiet unease settles over the camp. No one says it aloud, but everyone notices the same thing. The hunters should have returned by now. Children stop their games and glance toward the distant tree line. An elderly woman pauses while repairing a leather pouch. Even those busy preparing the evening fire occasionally lift their heads, listening for familiar footsteps. So, what happens if the hunters never come back? For early humans, this was never an impossible thought. Hunting was dangerous long before a spear was ever thrown. A broken ankle 5 miles from camp could become a death sentence. A charging bison could scatter an entire hunting party. A sudden storm might erase tracks and force everyone to take a longer route home. Sometimes, a hunt simply lasted much longer than expected. Nobody had watches. Nobody knew exactly when someone would return. Waiting became part of life, yet panic was surprisingly rare. One reason was experience. The people waiting at camp understood something that modern films often ignore. A successful community never depended on a single hunter. Food gathered earlier that day already lay beside the fire. Baskets filled with roots, berries, nuts, and edible plants would feed the group even if the hunt failed completely. The tools had been repaired. Water had been collected. The camp was ready for another night, whether meat arrived or not. This quiet preparation was one of humanity's greatest survival strategies. Redundancy, never placing all hope in one outcome. If the hunters succeeded, everyone benefited. If they failed, life continued. As the afternoon slowly turns toward evening, distant birds suddenly rise above the trees. Several people notice, not because birds always meant danger, but because every unusual movement in nature deserved attention. Moments later, a familiar sound reaches the camp, not voices, wood striking against wood, the soft rhythm of spear shafts tapping together as people walk. The hunters are returning. Children are the first to run toward them, not because they know whether the hunt was successful, but because every safe return is worth celebrating. As the group comes into view, everyone immediately begins reading silent clues. Are they walking slowly from exhaustion? Are they carrying heavy loads? Do they smile? Without a single word, experienced eyes can already guess the outcome. Today has been a good day. Across the shoulders of 2 hunters hangs a freshly killed antelope. It is not enormous. It will not feed the group for months, but it is enough. Enough fresh meat for tonight, enough hide for clothing, enough bones for future tools, enough sinew to repair damaged weapons, enough fat to preserve leather. Nothing will be wasted. There is no wild celebration, no shouting, only quiet satisfaction. Several people immediately step forward to help carry the animal into camp. The work begins almost at once. The hide is carefully removed. The best cuts of meat are prepared for cooking. Some pieces are sliced into thin strips that will later be dried above the fire, allowing them to last for many days. Children watch every movement. They are not simply watching dinner being prepared. They are watching knowledge being passed from one generation to the next. Every cut has a purpose. Every bone is saved. Every lesson matters. Modern supermarkets have made us forget something our ancestors understood instinctively. Food was never just something to eat. It was clothing, it was shelter, it was medicine, it was tools, it was tomorrow. As evening slowly settles across the valley, the rich smell of roasting meat begins drifting through the camp. People gather once again around the fire. The hardest work of the day is finally over, but now another part of human life is about to begin. What did early humans do when there was finally nothing left to do? The evening meal has ended. The last pieces of roasted meat are shared between the families, and the camp slowly settles into a quieter rhythm. The day's work is finally behind you. The hunt is over. The baskets have been emptied. The tools have been repaired. The children are no longer running through the grass. For the first time since sunrise, there is nothing that absolutely must be done. But what did early humans do with this time? Many people imagine that prehistoric life left no room for rest. Every hour, they assume, was spent searching for food or avoiding danger. It is an image repeated so often that it feels almost unquestionable. Yet modern anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies have reached a surprising conclusion. Many groups actually enjoyed far more leisure time than most people living in industrial societies today. That does not mean life was easy. It means that once the essential work was finished, people often stopped working. You move closer to the fire. Someone quietly feeds another branch into the glowing embers. Sparks drift upward into the darkening sky before disappearing among the first stars. Nobody reaches for a phone. Nobody checks the time. Nobody worries about tomorrow's meeting. The evening belongs entirely to the people gathered here. Children continue playing, though their games have become slower now. They imitate the hunters they watched return only an hour earlier, pretending to track invisible animals through the grass. Every laugh echoes gently across the valley. Nearby, two older men compare newly made spear points, discussing which shape might fly straighter. They are not arguing, they are experimenting. Innovation did not begin with cities. It began beside fires exactly like this one. A woman patiently threads animal sinew through a leather pouch, while another carefully twists dried plant fibers into stronger cord. Their hands never seem to stop moving, yet the work feels almost meditative rather than exhausting. Conversation flows naturally. Stories are exchanged. Someone remembers a successful hunt from many winters ago. Another laughs about a young hunter who once slipped into a river while trying to impress everyone else. Humor leaves almost no trace in archaeology. Stone tools survive. Bones survive. Fireplaces survive. Laughter does not. Yet there is every reason to believe it was just as common then as it is now. After all, humor is deeply human. It strengthens friendships. It reduces tension. It helps groups remain united during difficult times. Long before writing, long before kingdoms, long before history itself, people were already making one another smile. Perhaps this is one of the greatest misconceptions about early humans. We often picture them as primitive, always serious, always struggling. But they loved, they grieved, they celebrated, they joked. In many ways, they were emotionally far closer to us than they were different. The fire continues crackling softly. Faces glow orange in the dancing light. The youngest children begin resting against their parents, growing quieter with every passing minute. Nobody rushes them toward bed. Sleep arrives naturally, slowly, peacefully. As darkness spreads across the landscape, one person begins speaking, not to give instructions, not to solve a problem, but to tell a story. And without realizing it, humanity is about to create something that will outlive every spear, every stone tool, and every campfire. When did the first stories begin? The voices around the fire grow softer. The youngest children have curled beneath warm animal hides, fighting to keep their eyes open just a little longer. The hunters lean back against smooth stones, their tired bodies finally beginning to relax. Above them, thousands of stars slowly emerge, one by one, filling a sky untouched by smoke, cities, or artificial light. Then someone begins to speak. There is no book. No paper, no writing, only a human voice carried by the night air, and everyone listens. When did the first stories begin? No one knows the exact moment. No archaeologist has ever uncovered the world's first story preserved in stone. Words disappear the instant they are spoken. Unlike tools or bones, stories leave almost no physical evidence behind. Yet many scientists believe storytelling may be one of the oldest technologies humanity ever created. Long before writing preserved knowledge, stories did. Imagine trying to explain where dangerous animals hide without drawing a map. Imagine teaching a child which plants are poisonous without a written guide. Imagine remembering the path to a distant river discovered years ago. A story could do all of that. A single tale told beside a fire might carry enough knowledge to save someone's life many seasons later. This is why anthropologists often describe storytelling as humanity's first library. Knowledge was never stored on shelves. It lived inside people. One generation remembered, the next repeated, the one after that improved it. You watch the oldest member of the camp as everyone quietly gathers closer to the fire. His voice rises and falls with a calm rhythm. Perhaps he speaks of an enormous herd that crossed these valleys many winters ago. Perhaps he remembers a journey through mountains where food was almost impossible to find. Or perhaps the story has grown larger with every generation. A brave hunter becomes a legendary hero. A clever wolf becomes a talking spirit. A difficult winter becomes a test sent by unseen forces. That is how myths are born, not through lies, but through memory, imagination, and time. Modern neuroscience offers another fascinating clue. Stories are remarkably easy for the human brain to remember. Facts disappear. Lists are forgotten. But stories connect information to emotion. That makes them unforgettable. Without realizing it, our ancestors may have discovered one of the most effective learning systems ever developed. Every child listening beside this fire is learning far more than entertainment. They are learning where to travel, who to trust, what to fear, when to leave, how to survive, and perhaps most importantly, who they are. Stories create identity. They remind every generation that they belong to something older than themselves. A family, a community, a people. As the fire burns lower, the storyteller finally falls silent. For several moments, nobody speaks. The only sounds are the gentle crackling of burning wood and the quiet chorus of insects hidden in the darkness. Above the camp, the stars continue their endless journey across the sky. Unlike us, these people know every constellation without telescopes. They watch the moon change its shape month after month. They notice which stars appear before winter arrives. The sky is not simply beautiful. It is a calendar, a compass, a clock, perhaps even something sacred. For tens of thousands of years, every human being who ever lived looked up at these same stars and wondered exactly the same thing. What waits for us beyond the darkness? Tomorrow morning, they will wake once again beneath this sky, and another ordinary day will begin, just as it has, for countless generations. The fire has almost disappeared. Only a few glowing embers remain, quietly pulsing beneath a blanket of white ash. One by one, the conversations fade into silence. The children have already fallen asleep, wrapped safely beneath warm animal hides. The adults settle beside one another, their bodies tired from another ordinary day that has now become another distant memory. Above them, the stars continue their silent journey across the night sky. Nothing about this moment feels extraordinary, and perhaps that is exactly what makes it extraordinary. Throughout this entire day, you never witnessed a great battle. No mighty king appeared, no empire rose, no famous invention changed the world. Instead, you experienced something far more important, an ordinary day, because history is rarely shaped only by extraordinary people. It is built by millions of ordinary mornings, ordinary families, ordinary conversations. Ordinary meals shared around ordinary fires, generation after generation. For almost all of human existence, people lived days very much like this one. They woke with the rising sun. They watched the weather. They searched for food. They cared for their children. They repaired their tools. They laughed together. They shared stories beneath the stars. Then they slept, only to begin again tomorrow. It is easy to imagine these people as strangers from another world. Yet the longer we spend beside them, the more familiar they become. The love between parents and children, the comfort of returning home after a long day, the satisfaction of sharing a meal, the quiet peace of sitting beside a fire while listening to someone tell a story. None of these things belong to the modern world. They belong to humanity itself. Over the next 40,000 years, almost everything around these people would change. Villages would become cities. Cities would become kingdoms. Kingdoms would become nations. Writing would preserve knowledge. Agriculture would transform the land. Ships would cross oceans. Machines would reshape civilization. And eventually, people would walk on the moon. Yet beneath every remarkable achievement, something much older would remain. The same curiosity, the same cooperation, the same desire to protect those we love, the same hope that tomorrow will be a little better than today. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside the ordinary life of our ancestors. Technology has changed. Civilizations have changed. The world has changed, but the human heart has changed far less than we often imagine. As the last flames quietly disappear into the darkness, you close your eyes once again. Tomorrow, another sunrise will arrive, just as it did 40,000 years ago, just as it always has, and somewhere, carried gently through time. The story of humanity continues. The stories have come to an end. One by one, the voices around the fire grow quieter until only the gentle crackling of burning wood remains. The youngest children are already asleep, curled beneath warm animal hides, while the adults continue staring into the dancing flames for a few moments longer. No one seems to be in a hurry. The day has lasted exactly as long as nature intended. The sun has disappeared. The work is finished. Now, it is finally time to sleep. But did early humans actually sleep better than we do today? At first, the answer may seem obvious. No traffic, no phones, no glowing screens, no late-night emails, no alarms waiting to interrupt the morning. It sounds like the perfect night's sleep. Yet reality was far more complicated. The nights were darker than anything most modern people have ever experienced. Without artificial light, the stars filled every corner of the sky, and the only source of warmth came from the slowly fading fire beside the family. As the flames became smaller, the temperature inside the shelter gradually dropped. People pulled animal hides closer around their bodies. Some shifted position. Others briefly opened their eyes before falling asleep once again. Sleep was rarely one long, uninterrupted experience. Modern sleep scientists believe our ancestors probably woke naturally several times during the night, not because something was wrong, but because that may have been completely normal. Before electric lighting transformed human life, many societies throughout history described sleeping in two separate periods, sometimes called first sleep and second sleep. Between them, people quietly talked, reflected, prayed, repaired simple objects, or simply watched the fire before drifting back to sleep. Perhaps our ancestors followed a similar rhythm for thousands of years. The silence of the night allowed them to notice things we rarely experience today. The distant sound of moving water, wind passing through tall grass, the call of an owl somewhere beyond the valley, the gentle breathing of family members sleeping only a few feet away. These sounds did not interrupt sleep. They became part of it. There was comfort in knowing you were never alone. Every member of the group rested together. The fire remained alive. The stars remained above, and somewhere beyond the darkness, morning was already on its way. Perhaps that is the greatest difference between their nights and ours. Today, many people fall asleep surrounded by noise. 40,000 years ago, people fell asleep surrounded by nature. As another log quietly settles into glowing embers, someone near the fire slowly opens their eyes, not because the night is over, but because someone has always remained awake, who watched over everyone while the rest of the camp slept. As darkness settles over the valley, the camp grows quieter with every passing minute. Most of the children are already asleep. The fire burns lower than before, casting long shadows across the shelter walls. The stories have ended, the laughter has faded, and one by one, people close their eyes. But something unexpected happens. Not everyone goes to sleep, who stayed awake while everyone else slept. It may seem like a simple question, yet for thousands of generations, the answer could mean the difference between life and death. During the day, the world belonged to people. At night, it belonged to something else. The darkness concealed dangers that even the most experienced hunter could not predict. Wolves wandered silently through the forests. Hyenas searched for abandoned food. Curious bears occasionally approached the smell of smoke drifting through the night air. Most nights passed peacefully, but nobody could know which night would be different. That uncertainty changed the way early humans slept. Unlike many modern families, they probably did not all fall asleep at exactly the same moment. Anthropologists studying traditional hunter-gatherer societies have noticed something fascinating. Sleep often came in waves. Some people naturally became tired earlier. Others remained awake much later, quietly feeding the fire, repairing a tool, or simply watching the darkness beyond the camp. Hours later, they would sleep while someone else woke naturally, without planning it. Someone was almost always awake. Scientists call this the sentinel hypothesis. It suggests that human sleep may have evolved in a way that naturally protected the entire group. Instead of everyone sleeping deeply at the same time, different individuals rested at different hours, creating an almost continuous watch throughout the night. No guards were appointed. No schedule was written. Human biology may have done the work on its own. You sit quietly beside the fire. The flames are now little more than glowing embers. The air has turned colder. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls through the darkness. You listen, not because you expect danger, but because listening has become part of being alive. Every sound carries information. A branch breaking, leaves moving, running water, the distant howl of an animal far beyond the valley. Most of these sounds mean nothing at all, but one day, one of them might mean everything. The person keeping watch gently places another piece of wood onto the fire. Tiny sparks rise into the night before disappearing among thousands of stars. No words are spoken. There is no need. Everyone understands why the fire must continue burning until morning. It provides warmth. It offers light. It keeps predators cautious. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds every sleeping member of the group that someone is still awake, watching, listening, waiting for the first light of another day, because morning is always coming. The only question is, how did early humans measure time without clocks? The night is still. The fire burns quietly at the center of the camp, its orange glow reaching only a few steps into the darkness. Beyond that small circle of light, the world disappears into shadows. Most of the family is asleep, but one person is not. They sit silently beside the fire, occasionally adding another small branch before it burns too low. Their eyes move between the glowing embers, the sleeping children, and the darkness beyond the camp. How did early humans measure time without clocks? Today, we hardly notice time passing. Our phones tell us the exact minute. Our calendars divide the year into months and weeks. Our alarms wake us with perfect precision. 40,000 years ago, none of those things existed, yet people still knew when to wake, when to travel, when to hunt. When winter was approaching, when certain fruits would ripen, and when it was finally safe to begin a long journey. Their clocks were not made by people. They were made by nature. The first clock was the sun. Long before anyone understood astronomy, every human family learned to watch the changing position of sunlight across the landscape. Morning light entered the shelter from one direction. By midday, shadows became short beneath their feet. As evening approached, the valley slowly turned golden before darkness quietly returned once again. Every single day repeated this rhythm, not perfectly, but closely enough to guide an entire way of life. The second clock was the moon. Its changing shape became one of humanity's earliest calendars. Night after night, people watched it grow brighter, then disappear, only to begin the cycle once more. Without writing a single number, they could still measure the passing of many days. Then there were the seasons, the first flowers, the arrival of migrating birds, the appearance of salmon in nearby rivers, the first cold wind announcing that winter was no longer far away. Every change carried information. Nothing happened without meaning. Even the stars slowly shifted across the year. Certain constellations appeared only during particular seasons. Others disappeared completely before returning months later. Generations of careful observation transformed the night sky into something extraordinary. It became a map, a calendar, a memory, perhaps even the oldest classroom humanity ever knew. Children did not memorize dates. They memorized patterns. When these stars appeared, the rains would soon follow. When that mountain lost its snow, the rivers would become easier to cross. When those birds returned, the berries would soon begin to ripen. Nature itself became the teacher. Perhaps this is why early humans developed such extraordinary powers of observation. Modern life often encourages us to look down, toward screens, toward clocks, toward schedules. Our ancestors spent much of their lives looking outward, toward forests, toward rivers, toward the horizon, toward the sky. Time was not something they controlled, it was something they followed. As the hours quietly pass, the stars slowly begin drifting westward. The fire grows smaller, the air becomes colder. Somewhere beyond the eastern hills, the first hint of another sunrise is already waiting. Soon, the camp will wake once again, and another ordinary day will begin. But before anyone opens their eyes, one final question remains. If this way of life lasted for tens of thousands of years, why did it ever change? The first light of dawn begins to return. Birds sing exactly as they did yesterday. The fire is fed once more. Children slowly wake beneath their blankets of animal hide. The hunters stretch their tired muscles. Another ordinary day is about to begin, just like yesterday, just like the day before, just like thousands of days before that. And then, a remarkable thought quietly appears. If this way of life worked so well, why did humanity ever change? For nearly 300,000 years, people lived much like the family you have spent this day with. Generation after generation, they hunted, gathered, shared food, told stories, raised children, and followed the changing seasons. Empires did not exist. Kings did not exist. Money did not exist. Yet humanity survived, not for decades, not for centuries, but for thousands upon thousands of generations. From today's perspective, it almost seems impossible. If this life lasted for so long, why did anyone decide to live differently? The answer is surprisingly simple. Nobody woke up one morning and invented civilization. There was no single brilliant idea, no great leader, no magical discovery. Instead, change arrived so slowly that almost nobody noticed it happening. Imagine one unusually warm spring. Wild grasses grow thicker than usual along the edge of a river. Seeds fall naturally onto soft ground. Months later, people return to the same place. To their surprise, even more plants are growing there. Was it luck? Or did the seeds left behind somehow create new life? No one knows. They simply notice. The next year, someone stays a little longer. Perhaps they scatter a few extra seeds without expecting much. Perhaps they remove competing weeds nearby. Perhaps they simply return more often because food has become easier to find. Without realizing it, an experiment has begun, not inside a laboratory, but inside nature itself. For countless generations, movement had been the key to survival. If food disappeared, people moved. If winter arrived, people moved. If animals migrated, people followed. But now, for the first time, the land itself begins asking a different question. What if you stayed? Nobody understands where this question will eventually lead. Not to villages, not to cities, not to writing, not to kingdoms. Those ideas remain thousands of years in the future. For now, it is only a tiny possibility, a quiet thought carried by a handful of curious people standing beside a river. Most families continue living exactly as they always have, and for many thousands of years, they are probably making the right decision. Because the world still belongs to those who understand its forests, rivers, mountains, and changing seasons. Yet history has begun to move, almost invisibly, like the first crack appearing in a sheet of ice. Small enough that nobody pays attention, large enough that one day it will reshape the entire world. But before humanity builds its first village, one final question remains unanswered. What did we gain, and what did we lose when we stopped wandering? The first villages would eventually appear. Fields would replace forests. Stone houses would replace temporary shelters. Animals would become livestock instead of prey. For the first time in history, many people would spend their entire lives without ever leaving the place where they were born. It would become one of the greatest turning points humanity had ever experienced. But did life actually become better? At first, the answer seems obvious. Farming produced more food. Permanent homes offered greater protection from the weather. Communities grew larger. Knowledge became easier to preserve. Over thousands of years, these changes would eventually lead to writing, mathematics, science, and civilization itself. Everything that surrounds us today can trace its origins back to that remarkable transformation. Yet every great change asks for something in return. Hunter-gatherers rarely remained in one place long enough to fill the land with waste. Farmers did. Hunter-gatherers usually ate dozens, sometimes hundreds, of different wild plants and animals throughout the year. Early farmers often depended on only a few crops. Their harvests became larger, but their diets became less varied. Life expectancy did not immediately increase. In many early farming communities, archaeologists have discovered skeletons showing signs of poorer nutrition, more tooth decay, and a greater number of infectious diseases than those of many hunter-gatherers who lived before them. The change was not as simple as progress replacing hardship. It was a trade. People gained certainty, but they often surrendered freedom. For tens of thousands of years, your ancestors followed the seasons. Now the seasons would begin controlling them. Seeds had to be planted at exactly the right moment. Fields had to be protected. Harvests could not be delayed. For the first time, people became responsible not only for themselves, but for the land beneath their feet. The rhythm of life changed. Days became more predictable, but also more demanding. The forest no longer decided where people would travel. Their fields did. Gradually, another unfamiliar idea appeared. Ownership. This land, these animals, this harvest belong to us. For countless generations, the wilderness had belonged to everyone and to no one at the same time. Now invisible boundaries slowly emerged across the landscape. One family farmed here. Another lived beyond the river. A fence could separate neighbors. A field could create disagreement. New opportunities arrived. But so did new problems. Still, despite everything humanity gained or lost, one truth quietly remained unchanged. At the end of every day, families still gathered together. Parents still comforted tired children. Friends still shared meals. Stories were still told before sleep. Love, hope, fear, curiosity. These things belonged neither to hunter-gatherers nor to farmers. They belonged to being human. Perhaps that is why, even today, so many people dream about escaping the noise of modern life, camping beneath the stars, walking through quiet forests, listening to birds instead of traffic, sitting beside a fire with people they care about. Somewhere deep inside us, a small part of the ancient world still feels strangely familiar, perhaps because it never completely disappeared. It simply changed its shape. And as our journey through this extraordinary day finally comes to an end, one final question remains. After everything we've experienced together, are we really so different from the people who lived 40,000 years ago? The fire has finally become ash. Only a faint ribbon of smoke rises into the cool morning air as another sunrise quietly begins. The family is waking once again, just as they did yesterday and just as they will tomorrow. Nothing about this morning seems important. No great discovery will be made. No empire will rise. No famous name will be remembered. Yet days exactly like this one quietly changed the world, not because they were extraordinary, but because they were repeated again and again for tens of thousands of years. Every child who learned to recognize animal tracks became a teacher for the next generation. Every story shared beside the fire carried knowledge that no written book yet existed to preserve. Every successful hunt, every shared meal, every comforting embrace between parent and child became another small thread woven into the long story of humanity. History is often told through kings, wars, and civilizations, but for almost all of human existence, there were no kings, there were no nations, there were only ordinary people living ordinary days, and somehow, those ordinary days were enough to carry our species across ice ages, enough to cross continents, enough to survive droughts, storms, and changing climates, enough to become every civilization that would one day follow. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden inside this journey. Humanity was not built in palaces. It was built beside campfires. It was built by people who looked after one another, who shared what little they had, who taught their children, who remained curious about the world around them, who found reasons to laugh even when life was uncertain. 40,000 years separate your world from theirs. Cities have replaced forests. Electric lights have replaced campfires. Cars have replaced footsteps. Phones have replaced long conversations beneath the stars. Yet if you look closely, some things have never changed. We still wake each morning wondering what the day will bring. We still gather around light when darkness falls. We still tell stories to those we love. We still search for belonging. We still hope tomorrow will be kinder than today. Perhaps civilization changed our surroundings far more than it changed us. Deep beneath every modern invention, beneath every building, every road, every screen, lives a mind shaped by countless generations who once watched the sunrise from the entrance of a simple rock shelter. And perhaps that is why places like this still speak to us, why mountains feel peaceful, why forests feel familiar, why sitting beside a quiet fire can calm something inside us that words cannot fully explain. It is not nostalgia for a world we remember. It is recognition of a world that helped create us. Tonight, you walked beside the earliest chapters of the human story, not as an observer, but as one of them. And although 40,000 years now separate you from that ancient morning, the distance between your hearts may never have been very great at all. Thank you for joining me on tonight's journey through history and science. If you enjoyed this peaceful exploration, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps this channel continue creating long, relaxing documentaries designed to help you unwind, learn something new, and gently drift off to sleep. If there is another fascinating mystery from history or science you would like to explore in a future episode, feel free to share your suggestion in the comments below. I always enjoy reading your ideas. And now, wherever you are in the world, I hope you can leave behind the noise of the day, slow your thoughts, and enjoy a peaceful night's rest. Thank you for spending this time with me. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next journey through history. Good night.